It is my pleasure today to bring you Reverend Glenn Stocking.
Thank you, Marzia. I think is artistic take a way of saying you don't know what I'm talking about half the time. I'll accept it either way. I appreciate it. I appreciate being here. Thank you all for your attention this morning. Uh, yeah, we're talking this morning about many hands lightening the load. This is certainly not a new concept with any of you. You've heard it a million times, and you certainly experienced it in your life, knowing that when there's something heavy to be moved, it's always good to have a neighbor with a pickup truck and make that job a little easier. So it seems obvious to us that that's a true statement. And yet, so often in our lives, when we face challenges, we choose to face them alone. For whatever reason, we simply, whether it's our upbringing or whatever about us, that our ego perhaps, that says, I can handle this. I don't need any help. I can get through this. And then, sometimes we can, but there's no reason why we should. Think of a spirit. Spirit is a conglomeration of all of our individualities. It's simply all of us together that forms spirit, this infinite spirit thing. The fence along my backyard has outlived its usefulness. And I've been putting off repairing it or replacing it since neither one of those was something I was looking forward to. It's just too hot to be repairing it, and it's too expensive to replace it. But I refuse to despair. And you may say, but Reverend Glenn, you've not suffered as I have. And you would be right, because I have been blessed with a core understanding of how spirit works. It's always been a part of my life. Even though I didn't understand it, I always had it. Long before I knew of Science of Mind teaching, I knew there was a level of comfort under which I would never fall. And so far, so good. But now that I know how the universe works, I'm even more confident in my belief. Now, this is where I like to remind students to set their expectations high. If I have one regret in life, it is that my untrained spiritual powers seemed focused on a floor through which I could not fall, rather than a sky without limits. Although I have yet to win the Florida lottery, I continue to be blessed with experiences of prosperity, like the knock on my door that introduced the new owners of the house behind mine. They wanted to know how I felt about them replacing the fence between our properties. We're going to split the cost and lighten the load for both of us. And I personally feel that by sharing in the cost, by contributing a little something, down the road, I'm going to get a little something back. It's not in total, there's a little bit of payback for me on that, but I just know that that's how spirit works. The more we contribute, the more we get. Now, in the Bible book of Nehemiah, they talk about the rebuilding of the Jerusalem after it had been destroyed, and how the local inhabitants responded to the challenge. And the first to get their hands dirty were the priests, and they could have pleaded their calling to undertake the sacred things, but they took the lead in the rebuilding plan, and everyone else in the community jumped in. And it turned out that a lot of the people didn't even live in Jerusalem. But they knew that by helping to contribute to the greater good, it would benefit everyone. We are likewise blessed with opportunities to put many hands to the wheel. Everyone recognizes, for example, that national defense is a task that requires the entire nation to contribute. It may seem counterintuitive to think of military infrastructure as a spiritual creation, but when you think of its purpose as a deterrent to war or to neutralize human lunacy run amok, its spiritual roots are more evident. This week marks the end of World War II, and there have been many documentaries on TV reminding us of the teamwork required to bring that horror to an end. No army hit the beach without support from air and naval forces preparing the way and supporting the move forward. And no army hits the field without the support of millions of people back home, designing, building, and shipping the tools required for success. Like the builders of the New Jerusalem, we have an opportunity to set many hands to work building a better society for our children. When we face the challenge of building a fence alone, we can easily be overwhelmed by its cost and the burden of the work. When we recognize the fence benefits more than one and share its cost among those who will enjoy it, the burden is set on a larger footprint and the load reduced. Spirit is a loving force, and building things is what it does. Spirit is infinite, and all of us are part of it. Think drop of water and its relationship to the ocean. The ocean is a collection of water drops working together, forming the ocean. People working together create our common consciousness, our collective soul. A single individual facing a major health concern is likely to be overwhelmed by its cost and the burden of life interruption while the concern is dealt with. When we recognize that health care costs are a concern to everyone, the spiritual model indicates there is good sense in sharing that load among everyone who benefits. Everyone who benefits, it turns out, is everyone. A healthcare solution that singles out some over others seems to run counter to the spiritual model. Spirit does not favor one drop over another. The ocean requires all of its drops of water, or it is not infinite and not an ocean. The principles of spirit work all the time for all the people. It makes good sense that all the people understand how spirit works. Understanding how spirit works comes easier to people who have a broad knowledge base, whose world of experience expands beyond their perceived horizon. When knowledge is metered out to some chosen few while the remainder are left wanting, spirit is denied. Damming off some of the water drops creates a world of duality. Again, spirit, infinite. We are only in principle with spirit when we recognize and choose education solutions that are inclusive. Spirit requires that knowledge be available to everyone without condition, like the unconditional love Spirit blesses us with. People live in family units, join together in community units, tribes, cities, states, etc., and do so because we are hardwired to be social animals. We are better together. Alone, we are easily overwhelmed. We are extensions of spirit. Spirit is all of us. Again, spirit, infinite. A country is a collection of persons who, mostly by birth and some by choice, are living within geographic boundaries under a formal set of rules that determine how the country is governed. Using our ocean analogy, all the water drops are important and are affected by any action of the ocean. Spiritual principle requires every drop of water to be respected by the ocean. The ocean can only remain in principle when it acts for the common good of all the individual drops. An ocean that ignores the need of some of the drops and purposely silences their voice is out of integrity, fosters duality, and lacks any sort of spiritually sustainable support. A country requires all its citizens to participate in its governance. Relying on one person or one isolated group of persons is counter-spiritual and will see them overwhelmed. We have support all around us. If we choose to stand alone, we are out of integrity with Spirit. We have practitioners to help us remember our spiritual truth and develop our spiritual spine. We have examples of spiritual practices to guide us. Our lives are awash with teachers who come along just when we need them. Learn to recognize them. Warning, they do not always look as we expect them to look or smell the way we would want them to smell, and they will never give us a hall pass. We have intuition that tells us it is time for a change, and we have courage that allows us to change. Stop doing stupid. Answer the door. Help is here. Did I mention Spirit is infinite? Lighten your load. Thank you.